if Lewis Hamilton plays cards, I do hope that he has a better poker face than what he tried to pull off in the off-season from 2020 till this season, going along saying that he was not going to re-sign with the team where he has won 6 of his 7 world championships and 7 across the board for Mercedes. It wasn't going to be possible, and of course Lewis Hamilton was going to re-sign with the team, and then of course day after the Super Bowl he does that. Lewis Hamilton is signed to drive the W12 alongside Valtteri Bottas for the 2021 season. He didn't fool any of us, or if he did, I mean, let me know in the comment section below, did he fool you? Because he did not fool me, and I'm assuming that he didn't fool most of you out there. Lewis Hamilton, of course, wanted to go for his 8th world title in 2021, the year before the regulations changed again, of course, in 2022. Originally 2021, but of course pushed as we didn't get a proper season in 2020, so then they have been moved to give us a final goodbye to the current regulations. The W12 is the final season where the regulations will stay the same, just like they have in 2014, of course, when Mercedes started their dominance. Lewis Hamilton's contract that he signed us and tried to fool most of us, or if not all of us, is only for one more season. And of course, this is the big season where he is going to try and win his 8th World Championship. 8 will, of course, then mean in terms of World Championships, he is the greatest of all time and will beat the current record of 7, who was set by German driver and Ferrari driver Michael Schumacher, who set this number 7 in 2004. Of course, Lewis matching it this year also, along with his many records, which he has either matched Michael Schumacher, beaten it, or just blown him out of the water. Lewis is going to be the greatest of all time in World Championships, and I'm sure that will then sign him as the GOAT of F1 totally, and that is the end of the conversation, but we'll have to see what happens. So before we get into today's video, you might be noticing there's one difference. I'm not on my own today. I am joined by a great friend of the channel. It is Mike from F1 Fanatics. Mike, once again, it is great to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you, Lyle. I hope you're well as well, mate. Thanks as always for welcoming me on to the great GP debate show. Obviously, I've been around long enough that it was the F1 debate show when the first time I came on. But yeah, as it's developed in what was described in F1 YouTuber land as the F1 gate with Cranky Yankee. It's good to be back here, mate. I hope you're well.
Yeah, I am, Mike. Thank you. And yeah, F1 debate show, you were around when we were like that. Big name change. It's absolutely crazy. We were Coke, then you Coke, and now we're back to Coke as well. And as you said there about the F1 game, we could have just stayed with F1, as you guys are as well. It doesn't seem like the media is coming after us as of yet. But anyway, going back to the topic of Lewis Hamilton. He is on 7 at the moment. And let's just start this episode and kick it off, Mike, by saying, will he go for 8 in 2021? Will he get his 8th World Championship?
I cannot see him not doing it. I know obviously there's a lot of excitement. I know you're a Red Bull man, and I know that I think I was burnt last year. I think I've learnt my lesson last year. I think in our predictions video, I predicted Sebastian Vettel to win the title in 2020. I mean, that went very wrong. But then also I didn't predict that we would be affected by a global pandemic that would cause a very bizarre season, and Ferrari also to have just such a drop off in performance that I don't think anyone could have predicted. But I just see Lewis doing it. He's in such like almost a zen mode with Mercedes. They just work so well together. They understand each other so well. And I can't see Red Bull making up the gap enough to kind of challenge him over the course of a season.
Yeah, exactly. So he has said that whether he re-signs next year is completely down to him. It's not going to be if he wins a World Championship this year or not. And going back to the off-season, what I said there, mate, about his pretty terrible poker face, it sounded like Lewis was in that state of mind, as in if he didn't win the World Championship this year, he would then retire. And the only reason he is re-signing is to win the World Championship, because he's on 7, which is great, but as I said at the start there, it's not the greatest of all time in terms of World Championships. He is the greatest of all time when it comes to many different things: laps led, points scored, many things. That, of course, race wins, another the biggest one that he holds at the moment. But in terms of World Championships, he's not. He only matches it. So when he re-signed, did you believe that he was re-signing to win, or do you think it was just down to there was so many more factors? Did you believe that this was the only reason he was re-signing, or could it have just been because he just misses a sport and he's not done? Lewis is just not done.
I think the main reason is he's not done. I remember hearing an interview on Talk Sport with his dad, Anthony Hamilton, was discussing with them, going, I left Lewis at the airport after the last race in the season, Abu Dhabi, and I know he's going to sign for the season because he says he's enjoying his racing and everything's all sorted. So basically, all the kind of media furore that came after that, will he, won't he sign? I was like, well, and also the way that he spoke on the podium at the end of Abu Dhabi. Yeah. Lewis just enjoys racing, and seeing him talk in interviews, he will just keep racing while he enjoys it. And let's be honest, when you're winning at something in life, you tend to enjoy it. So, why wouldn't he get to go around the world? I know F1, the only thing I can really see different is if he meets someone and he wants to start like a family. Then obviously I think F1 and the way that F1's going, I think it's very hard to maintain a family life within the Formula One environment. And so that may be different. And obviously he's getting a little bit on in years now. So that type of, if having a family is something interests him, might be something that kind of comes and plays into his mind. It wouldn't be impossible to have a family and be an F1 driver. There are obviously people like Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen who do just that. But yeah, I think Lewis, racing is his life and he just loves it. And that's why he signed for this season. And that's why I think he'll sign going into the new regulations, regardless of whether he wins the championship or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I mean, that was the big question, obviously. Is he going to re-sign if he doesn't win the World Championship? So in terms of a one-year contract, of course, they exist. But the one-year contracts in terms of sport are normally done for either one of two things on kind of different ends of the spectrum. It's normally done for rookies, whatever sport that may be, football, rugby, anything, NFL. It's normally done because they're just like, well, I tell you what, if they bomb in the first few games or the first few races, I don't want them to stay at the team. It's also normally done for those guys that are close to retirement, and again, they're not sure what they're going to be doing. So, in terms of the one-year contract, again, that was offered. Lewis Hamilton, of course, has come out and said that that's just, he wants to kind of keep his options open. But what does those options mean? Does that mean retirement? Does that mean going to another team? It's mostly going to be retirement, but I mean, what are his options? Remember also, Lewis has got a lot of likened in other things, i.e. music. So what does keeping his options mean, do you think?
I think it's, just seeing the way that the world of F1 unfolds. Obviously, 2020 also saw Lewis Hamilton find his voice in social issues a lot as well, and obviously his fight against racism, something that's kind of very personal to him, and he wanted to kind of really make statements in the world and to use that voice from the platform that he's got. And he may kind of find interest and feel like he can influence the sport in a different way. He's obviously a team owner of Extreme E Team as well. He may feel like that's the environmentally friendly series that he wants to invest all his time and energy and improving and promoting, as well as Lewis Hamilton, the brand. It would be it's going to be fascinating to see how much that actually appeals to him. Like you said, the music and everything. But from my understanding, Toto Wolff was saying, wasn't he, that the reason it wasn't a longer term contract was because they still had some kind of things to hash out, but they just wanted to get this year done because they knew they were going for this year. And then come the summer, they were going to be hashing out the deal for the next couple of years. So I think in their heads, they had Lewis Hamilton being in F1 for another 3 years. I see the partnership is Lewis and Mercedes. If a time comes when that partnership ends, I think that's the time when Lewis Hamilton steps away from the sport. I don't think now he's at the stage of his career where he particularly will do like a Kimi Raikkonen, where he'll just race. Wherever it is, he'll race. I don't think Lewis wants that. He may do. I might be completely wrong, but I kind of feel like it's Mercedes or bust for Lewis Hamilton. As long as they're happy to have him, he's happy to have drive for them and see what they can achieve together.
That's a perfect analogy, that Mercedes or bust. You said there about Mercedes keeping their options open as well and ironing out a few problems. Obviously, if you're going to replace Lewis or you're going to replace somebody in the team, you're never going to say, we're keeping our options open because we're not sure if we're going to like you at the end of the day. Obviously, they'll never say that to Lewis's face. And we've all thought about how Mercedes are going to break the news to Lewis if and when they're going to replace him with, of course, George Russell or anybody else, behind the scenes. It's most likely going to be George Russell, of course. So Mercedes saying, ironing out the problems, is that their way of saying to Lewis, we're not thinking we're going to get rid of you, but we might sign George Russell in the future? Because again, the time will come when, of course, they need to step up and do that. But with Lewis being the most successful driver and most likely the most successful driver of all time, that's going to be a hard thing to do. You can't just say to Lewis Hamilton, that's it, go on. So yeah, is Mercedes keeping their options open and ironing out a few problems, as you just said there? Their way of saying we are going to evaluate you, Lewis, and we might sign George Russell for next year.
I think that's fair. I think Lewis would expect that as well, wouldn't you? You're a world champion. Lewis has set the bar incredibly high for himself. So if he drops below that standards, that he isn't being able to compete for a championship title, Mercedes don't want to be tied down to a long-term contract where they're paying him millions of pounds for when Lewis does go over the hill. I don't know when Lewis's drop-off is, to be honest with you, because he keeps himself in immaculate shape as a driver. I think you see F1 is difficult, but I think you can use examples from other racing series that, age is kind of just a number, especially with kind of more modern sports science. You can really kind of prolong a racing career as well. So I don't even know when Lewis might drop off performance-wise. I mean, if Lewis is performing at the levels he's done at for the last couple of seasons for the next 2-3 years, why would you get rid of him? Quite frankly, but it's smart for all parties to kind of keep themselves not tied down because it keeps pressure. And look, George Russell surely has to be coming into that seat next year. I'm convinced it has to be next year because there will be a point where George Russell just goes, I'm fed up of waiting.
Yeah.
And do they want to lose a talent like George Russell? And if they're going to lose out on George Russell, they're going to have to pay a fat ass paycheck to kind of get Max Verstappen to come on board, which wouldn't be impossible, I don't think, but it's going to cost them a lot of money. Not that Mercedes are short of a few bob or two, but George is certainly the cheaper option for a driver who looks like he's got all the attributes to be a future world champion.
So is it to keep George, they need to sign him next year and get rid of Lewis? I mean, we haven't discussed Valtteri yet. Obviously, that's
I think they can drive together. If I'm being honest with you, I think they'll drive together. That's all right. Give me 2 secs. I'll just restart the camera then. Don't worry. Where do you want to come in? Yeah. No problem at all. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it wouldn't be Russell in place of Hamilton. I think it would be Russell in place of Valtteri. I think a lot of people go, Hamilton is teammate dodging. It's something that top drivers do. But if it came down to it, I don't think Lewis, I know he didn't really have a choice in his rookie season, but he hasn't exactly shied away from the challenge of, he was teammates to a 2-time world champion in Fernando Alonso in 2007. Jenson Button, the 2009 world champion, came in and partnered him in 2010 through to 2012 when he left the team. Nico Rosberg was a highly rated young driver within it, and I know they kind of were mates coming through. He doesn't exactly shy away from teammates. It just made sense to capitalise on this period having someone like Valtteri Bottas. He is his Rubens Barrichello's for Michael Schumacher, shall we say. But I think George Russell would be almost a Lewis and Felipe Massa type of job. I know Felipe Massa never developed into the world champion that some people may have thought he would have been. I think a lot of that is due to obviously the horrible accident that he suffered from there, and very fine margins in 2008. But I think Lewis and George is a partnership that we'll see at Mercedes. I think Valtteri's time just will come to an end. I think it is last shot saloon. If for some reason Valtteri wins the World Championship, hats off to him, and Mercedes wouldn't be able to get rid of him. But I think it very much is going to be Lewis and George Russell going forward.
Yeah, that would be the good thing to see. That really would be the good thing to see. But I've got to say, signing a 1-year contract at the moment, when it could be Lewis's ballpark, he could have signed for 5, he could have signed for maybe not 10. But I don't know, just a 1-year contract for Lewis, it raises questions, doesn't it? And is it going to be 8, or is it going to be 8 or bust? Is it all or nothing this year? So let's just say theoretically he doesn't win the World Championship, and let's also say that he is beaten by his teammates. Do you think that will be enough to drive him out, or do you think Lewis in himself has enough belief that he wants to stay in the team, and nothing is going to drive us out, whether that be Mercedes fall to Red Bull, or McLaren, or let's even just say Ferrari, or if he's beaten by his teammate? Or is Lewis, as he said there before, he just loves racing so much and he is determined to stay in the sport, even if he doesn't win the World Championship this year?
I think Lewis, funnily enough, would be even more likely to stay if for some reason he doesn't win the World Championship this year. I know, it's maybe taking a lot for granted, assuming that he's going to stay within the sport and he has that power. But I just kind of feel like he's a competitor through and through, Lewis Hamilton. He's been a competitor throughout his whole career. You don't get that many race wins. You don't get that many pole positions if you're not hungry to kind of prove and test yourself against the best. And obviously, proving yourself against the best will probably be combated by some people by saying, but you've got Valtteri Bottas for a teammate for the past few years. Look, Valtteri is a challenging teammate, but, Lewis Hamilton saw off the challenge of the Ferraris and the Sebastian Vettels back in 2017 and 2018. He's seen off the Rosberg challenge. I know obviously we'll never know with Rosberg obviously coming out on top in 2016, but yeah, he did it. He mentally beat Rosberg, because although Rosberg beat the championship, Rosberg was like, I gave everything for that one championship. I couldn't beat Lewis from that point. And I think Button had kind of spoken about earlier in his career, if Lewis Hamilton figures out how to kind of really switch it on and groove, which he's gone on to become, like, he's going to be unbeatable. And, that's what Lewis has done. So I just think he's incredibly motivated and challenges himself individual, that 8th, he'll probably want to go for 10. If he doesn't get, he's like, well, I want to get 8. I want to try these new regulations. And I do think these new regulations, if you were a driver, Lyle, I'll throw it back at you. If you were a driver and these new regulations had come in that are meant to be closer, which essentially, if you play the ego side of things, means that, it could maybe go, if you think you're the best driver, it's going to give you a chance to really show that, hopefully, with these new regulations. I think with Lewis Hamilton, he'd go, I want to show how good I am.
Yeah, I think Lewis would. He's definitely one of those kind of drivers. When it comes to regulations, I mean, the biggest one, of course, that we saw was the 2013 to 2014 one. It's not going to be as big as that. That was a pure engine, internal combustion change, of course, going from the V8 to the V6s. With Sebastian Vettel, the reigning world champion, I mean, okay, that was definitely something that I don't feel like we're going to see again. Somebody's fall of dominance, but it could possibly happen. We never know. With Lewis, so yeah, he is such a fighter. And as you said there before about him wanting to keep going and get more motivation even if he doesn't win this World Championship, he had the opportunity to go out on top this year, or last year as I should say. He had the opportunity to retire and go out on top as a boxer. Sorry, not as a boxer, like a boxer. And he didn't, because he wants to go for 8 and he wants to, of course, extend his name. If he loses, I can see him keep fighting as much as he can. It's Lewis Hamilton at the end of the day, and I think that's what I love about him. So let's say at the moment he doesn't get 8, 21, 22, 23. Will Lewis keep fighting and keep pushing and just keep being here until he gets 8? Because at the moment it sounds like that's what he's got his heart set on, and he's not going to stop until he gets it. Could you see that happening in 2025, 2026, and Lewis is still in Formula 1, itching for that 8th World Championship?
If the enjoyment's there, yes. I think it purely from the interviews you watch of Lewis, where you kind of get past the media thing when around the track. I always think there's the media Lewis and then there's the true Lewis. And I think when you see the interviews and I think especially this year, I've quite liked it. He's opened up himself more, which is always good. I always like drivers, whether you like him or hate him, as long as they're being honest to themselves. I think that's all you can appreciate. They're in this incredibly daunting position where millions of people, millions, I wouldn't go as far as billions, millions of people watch all of their actions and kind of, and judging them and every step of it. It is hard to kind of open yourself up when so many people are waiting for you to fail, but I think he just loves it, man. I just think he absolutely loves racing, and the 8 motivates him, definitely. But I don't think he is motivated purely by the records. I think somewhere inside him, he's still that little kid on a go-kart track who just enjoys it. It's kind of almost, you got to think, like, since he's been a kid, racetracks are his life. Like, it's his home. So it's almost, if he leaves F1, it's almost like moving from your childhood home type of thing. You got so many memories there, and it must be pretty hard to let that go, especially if you're like him and you're still so competitive at the top of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great analogy, that, Mike. Yeah, for sure. He loves it, and also as well, I mean, love isn't as much. You can't just stay in Formula 1 for the love, but the drivers we have seen love the sport. And I guess a lot of this you can compare to Sebastian Vettel as well, staying in for as long as he has. And unlike Lewis Hamilton, or the comparison, where the comparison changes between them, is of course Lewis has been winning for the previous 5 years, when of course Sebastian Vettel hasn't at Ferrari. So if anything, Sebastian could have more love than Lewis. But obviously we're not here to talk about Sebastian, we're here to talk about Lewis. We have. And obviously let us know in the comment section below, guys, what you think about Lewis Hamilton. Is he going for 8 this year? And if he doesn't get it, is it him bust? Or does he love Formula 1 so much to stay? Or is he just wanting to get that 8? And even if it takes 10 years, he will get it. But nevertheless, Lewis Hamilton signs a 1-year contract. And to be honest, I'm more shocked at that than when it got to, say, the end of February. Well, not the end of February, say the end of January. And he hadn't re-signed. 1-year contract for Lewis Hamilton, and what does that mean? But anyway, it's been a great chat with you, Mike. Obviously, getting your views on Lewis Hamilton. Obviously, you have some great views on Lewis as well, and you are definitely adamant that he loves the sport. Obviously, it's been great hearing your opinions. Thank you very much for that, and of course, being on the channel. Also, it's my privilege. Obviously, great friends. And obviously, we've worked alongside your channel as well. The F1 Fanatics, guys, we're going to leave it in the description box below. Go and check out some of their videos, and of course, give them a subscribe as well. Very similar to what was our channel. We used to say it was our channel. What was? Because obviously, we were 2, much like them, and now it's only me. So, hopefully they don't turn out like us. But anyway, we still have some great times working with them in the past, and definitely in the future. Also, we are getting down to the nitty-gritty part of the season, Mike, which of course starts with winter testing and then back on track at the end of March in Bahrain. Hopefully we can get a normal season as well. Hopefully we can get back to on-track action and of course racing all around the world, which Formula 1 should be. So last thing on today's video, we've talked about Lewis Hamilton battling in the W12, but we've now finally seen the W12. So, what do you think of the brand new car, the livery, the looks, and I mean, it's only going to be a guess. We haven't seen it on track yet, but how's it going to get on?
Track, it'll be one of the best cars on the grid. But that's the easy way out to say that, because you've got a good track record through the turbo hybrid era. The Mercedes tend to do pretty well. But the livery itself, I don't love it, but I appreciate what they were trying to do. The kind of blending of their kind of strong internal message with Lewis at the head of that, in terms of trying to improve diversity and representation within the team, but also sticking to their traditional roots, trying to make that silver a little bit more prominent. They are the silver arrows, of course. So it kind of doesn't feel quite right. I kind of feel like black or silver. And I don't know, or maybe a little bit more of a gradient of the silver coming in. But I appreciate what they've tried to do. And obviously the meme of AMG, I think, is going to be something that just kind of rolls throughout the season, seeing as they've plastered it all over the kind of fin of the car.
Yeah, it does look cool though, and if you've got something cool on your livery to show, well, just do it. Very much like Red Bull and just putting Honda everywhere on the car. So yeah, that's a W12 out. We've seen the car, we've seen what it looks like. Let's just wait till winter testing on track, and let's see what Lewis Hamilton can do, and if that contract talk will change, and of course, will he get to number 8 as the big thing. Guys, thank you very much for watching today's episode. If you have liked what you've seen around here, give me a like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time I upload. I have a lot more videos coming for you in the 2021 season, much like Mike does over on F1 Fanatics, so go and subscribe to us, and of course them. Great channel to follow. Also, thank you very much for watching today's video, guys. Stay safe, and until next time, we'll see you later.